And welcome to the What the Hell Everything podcast with Smitty. I am he, and we are together on this fine March 1st afternoon, recording date and time, March 1st, 2025, the day after the worst thing I've ever seen in my entire life. A lot to talk about. This is truly a What the Hell Everything podcast. And I got to tell you, man, if you followed this podcast at all, you kind of know the origins. You kind of know maybe what I did before, where I wanted to have fun on this podcast. And I wanted to just have a lighthearted, politics-free, by and large, podcast. But the times change. And as I've made a commitment to change this podcast up for my creative betterment, this Trump 2.0 has really spurred my creativity. It really has forced me, I feel like, to start talking again and do the creative things that I wanted to do, like writing, which I have been writing quite a bit and plan on hopefully dropping some sort of projects in this podcast realm of things I have been writing. I cannot guarantee that they will see the light of day, but I can just tell you my commitment to being more creative and exercising that creative muscle has already just done me wonders. Like, it's affecting my dreams in a crazy awesome way. I never remember my dreams. It's always a vibe, but I'm remembering my dreams in so much more vivid, colorful detail. It's kind of fucking awesome, man. And the last podcast that I did, the way that I want to do these podcasts, again, with the creative realm and then just focusing on one idea, is kind of the way I've wanted to do this for a long time. And this whole thing that is going on right now in this world is forcing me to make that content. You know, again, I never wanted to be a political podcast, but I touched on it a little bit in the last podcast. The way I grew up, you know, I really just grew up idolizing the people that fought and raised their voice. You know, Muhammad Ali, George Carlin, we can go down a long list of people that I love because of their willingness to dissent and their willingness to say, this is fucking stupid. What are we doing? You know, and I hate to say I want to be one of those people, but I refuse to be somebody that is not. And it feels so natural. That last podcast that I did just flowed so well, and it felt right. And I'm going to continue to do that because, again, what I have witnessed with that Donald Trump, J.D. Vance fucking tag team of Vladimir Zelensky was one of the worst things I've ever seen as an American. And that it automatically puts January 6th in the second place. I didn't think that would really be possible. But I feel like, honestly, man, I hate to overblow it. And there's people that'll say, you're making too much of it and it's not that big a deal. But it feels like I just witnessed the birth of the new fucking Soviet Union. With the United States right there with, what's his name? The whole man, the man with his arms crossed and feeding the talking points to Trump and Vance. And it was 100% a tag team. It's one of the grossest things I've ever seen in my fucking life. And it really has, I said in the last podcast, it's the big dick foreign policy. We're going to wave our dick in your face. There's nothing you can fucking do about it, which is really what happened. But what it is more is the way over the last however many years, maybe since social media was invented, I don't feel like it has ever been this toxic. And it is now the pro Rasslin way of doing business. And, you know, I actually, the other day, just to kind of do a little bit of research in a weird way, I used to be a wrestling fan, pro wrestling. I call it Rasslin because there's nothing else you can call it. It's fucking wrestling. But I was a kid, you know, I went to a fucking match in Cadillac, Michigan at the whatever center that was. And I saw Demolition, and I saw Andre the Giant, and all sorts of other dudes. And I was like, this is amazing. But I was a kid. And I don't know when I turned from the wrestling world. It was sometime in the Army where I was watching wrestling all the time with my buddies. And I was like, man, this is stupid. I really can't take this anymore. It just felt dumb. And you see it, man. Like, I'm going to use Pat McAfee as an example. And I got to tell you, I really love Pat McAfee's show. But I was talking to my brother about it one day, and he's like, yeah, I can take it. It's just some of the shtick, man, and some of the pro wrestling stuff that's involved with it. And I'm not saying at all that all of pro wrestling is MAGA. What I'm saying is most MAGA are probably pro wrestling fans. You know what I mean? And again, it is the way of communicating. It is the boisterous, fucking overly macho bullshit. The big dick foreign policy. It is right out of the WWE playbook, is what they pulled yesterday with Vladimir Zelensky, who was so, I don't know how the fuck that guy stayed so calm. This is why I could never be a politician, because I get so fired up. I'm at the point now where I want to like start showing up at like town halls, but I am so loud and vulgar that I know my ass is going to be kicked out of there before I even get a fucking chance to say what I want to say, because I get fired up. How that guy showed such really grace under pressure when those two guys are just going back and forth and hammering. And what was it? J.D. Vance just kept saying, you should thank us. You should thank us. Get down on your fucking knees and lick our fucking boots. That's what he was asking him to do. You know, I'm trying to remember what movie it was reminding me of, where like the henchman of the villain is kind of just fucking sitting there going, you should thank us for this opportunity to help you. It is right out of the fucking dictator's playbook. And it is gross. We have completely, over the last 2 months now, barely, you don't need much time to fucking kill everything, it seems like. But we have completely destroyed, hopefully not permanently. I don't know what the fuck we can do to right this ship. But we have totally destroyed any progress we have made and a vision to what we hope to be as a country over the last 70 years, post-World War II. It is disgusting. And while on the last podcast, I, made a point to really call out the racists, I have to really, again, make clear that I know that so many of my friends who are Trump voters are not racist. Not all Trump voters are racist. There are so many people that are just so disillusioned with the way the government works, and they clinged on to a con man. And they're just, what's the best way to describe it? There's for sure a lot of buyer's remorse with Trump voters. So many people are probably on the edge of admitting it, or at the very least deciding, okay, this is not the guy. They might not say it vocally, but they're okay. They're going to be over it. There's a lot of those people, and it depends on what you're watching, and it depends on what kind of news you're checking out. I mean, I purposely avoid anything that looks like it's going to be conspiratorial or YouTube fan news or completely, absolutely right wing. And I really try to not watch, I hate to say mainstream media, man, but like CNN is not doing us any fucking favors. MSNBC is not doing us any fucking favors. Please, just give me the boring fucking facts. I watch Reuters. That's really the only news, and PBS are really the only news that I watch. And then I watch a lot of stuff from around the world online, man, and read a lot of stories. And the consensus opinion is that we are the new enemy, that we are aligning ourselves with a communist dictator who is trying to bring the Soviet Union back into power, and he just found a new fucking ally. And the amount of people that are turning a complete blind eye to that because they refuse to see any sort of news outside of their bubble or take in any sort of outside information or outside opinions because their opinion is right. It is their America, and fuck everybody else. I don't want to say that we're going to have a civil war. It looks like it's possible. It's fucking terrifying to think about the possibilities of what could happen. I was having a discussion with a friend of mine who said something to the effect, he loves his family so much, which so many of us do. We love our families. There's never any way we would, jeopardize a relationship with a violent conflict between family members, But this particular friend has become more left-leaning over the years and more progressive, and his family's very MAGA. And he's like, I just couldn't see it happening. And it was only 100 years ago that Northern Ireland Ireland had its conflict. And people that don't follow history, man, that is family in Ireland is very tight-knit. And I've watched documentaries and true-to-life movies. Michael Collins, there's a movie called The Wind That Shakes the Barley. I think I'm getting that movie title correct. The Wind That Shakes the Barley. It has Cillian Murphy in it. And it is about this family who was part of the revolution against Great Britain when Ireland was whole. And they fought Great Britain for, 3 or 4 years. There was the Easter Rising of 1916. I think the treaty was signed in 1921. I could be way off on my facts. I'm just starting to learn Irish. But Michael Collins was the man that signed the treaty or negotiated the treaty with Great Britain, was part of the Irish Revolution or the Irish Republican Army, I want to say. Negotiated in that treaty that they would give Great Britain Northern Ireland, the 6 counties, I do believe, of Northern Ireland, which is now Northern Ireland, and the rest of Ireland would be its own independent nation. That's the short version, the simple version. And then there were still brothers fighting in the IRA. They're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Why are we giving this country to Great Britain? And why are we fucking over these 6 counties? We're supposed to be one whole country, and it started a civil war, which were brothers fighting against brothers. And people that don't see that shit and don't know your history, we're going to be fucked. And like I said, we're part of the new Soviet Union. That's what it looks like. It's gross, and what's going to happen after Trump and J.D. Vance fucked us, the new Soviets. That's what I'm calling their tag team, the new Soviets. After they fucked us yesterday and completely just berated this person and bullied him, and he sat there with such grace and composure and tried to speak facts about what actually happened, which, by the way, these Republican fucking cunt lawmakers that are turning their backs on what they previously said, you name it, man. You go on YouTube or you go on, just Google all of these Republican lawmakers that said at the time of the Russian invasion of Ukraine that it was a 100% unprovoked invasion. And it was awful and it was evil and Putin was a fucking evil dictator back then. And now, even just as early as like a week ago, lawmakers were saying that and changed their fucking tune because they're licking Trump's fucking boots. And it is one of the grossest, most traitorous things I've ever heard of. Like, this is some real Game of Thrones sort of like ancient Greece, ancient Rome. We're seeing the rise of Julius Caesar. And not enough people are pissed off about it. Not enough people are willing to talk shit. A lot of people are like me, where you know how you feel. And you know what's right and what's wrong. And you know how you're going to vote. But you are afraid to be vocal. You just... like I would consider myself or have considered myself mostly like an observer. And I'll chime off on it once in a while. But making the decision to get loud and resist is so essential to a democracy. And what I'm seeing with the free press, I don't know if the AP has been permanently banned from the White House, but it's a start. And what news is actually going to stand up and embrace investigative journalism? Where are we going to turn for the truth? Because the press is being suppressed, and it's going to be more and more and more. I'm trying to really figure out, especially, was it Bezos? Jeff Bezos? What did he fucking say? He owns the Post, Washington Post? I think so. He said, we're not going to, in our editorials anymore, have dissenting opinions, which is essential to a free press and a free market and a democracy, which means freedom. It is essential. It is the template for what we have to remain free in this country. And the fact that he did that and owns Amazon. I don't know who the fuck owns Google. I think it's a board. I think it's publicly owned. So I think, I don't know if the board's making the decision. I'm trying to figure out how the fuck they just automatically capitulated when that dick-faced Trump proclaimed like a king that it was the Gulf of America. And then the next day it showed up on, I don't think it was Apple at this point. I think it was Google Maps because I had to see it with my own fucking eyes. Google Earth. Yeah. And it was the Gulf of America. And I'm like, how the fuck do you just say, okay, we'll do that? Ugh, and just licking Trump's fucking boots. But I do know they don't want us talking. They don't want us spreading these ideas. And it is so awful. And, I really try to use this podcast as a way to not only talk about the things that are going on, but to also really talk about my mental health struggles and growths that I've had, of which I have had many, many struggles and many growths. I'm getting way better and really figuring my brain out. More of that to come. And I see a lot of parallels. And I look at somebody like J.D. Vance. And this is how I said in the last podcast where I was almost a racist, where I grew up dirt poor in northern Michigan. I say dirt poor. I was the poor kid in school. I was the kid that people made fun of. And I know J.D. Vance had a pretty fucked up upbringing as well. I haven't been able to bring myself to watch his movie because I'm not ready to give that motherfucker empathy right now. I know he grew up like shit with an addict mother, and his grandma raised him in Appalachia. I can tell you, northern Michigan is very much an Appalachia vibe as well. Dirt poor on a dirt road with no neighbors, with fucking trash all over the place, and everything was dirty. And you grow up with shame because of that. Shame because you were poor. When kids are making fun of you because you're poor. Because you have to get free lunch. And people make fun of you. And you switch schools, which I got to tell you, I got out of that Deliverance Appalachia style vibe of northern Michigan, in a place where I can guarantee you I was on a terrible path. My family moved to Walled Lake, Michigan, which is a suburb of Detroit. And I still went down a bad path. I talked about how I was a high school dropout and a little criminal, and changed my vibe as I got a little bit older. But it was way better than where I think I was headed. Because again, I didn't have an addict mother, but I had an alcoholic father and a mother with depression, and growing up dirt poor with all sorts of fucking deliverance shit going on around, not the family, but the community. And I relate to J.D. Vance in that way, where you grow up. Almost certainly, I don't know J.D. Vance. I really don't care to fucking know him. You grow up with that shame, and it fucking manifests yourself. Like, I really, I don't want to say I study Les Miserables, which is going to sound fucking weird to some people, I'm sure. But I grew up being really enamored with the French language and French food because I was into cooking and I watched a lot of Three's Company. And Jack Tripper was a fucking boss to me. And he was a French chef and he got all the women. And I'm like, this guy's fucking amazing. But I always had this thing where I loved French food. And when I was in ninth grade, freshman at Walled Lake High School, or was that eighth grade? I'm trying to remember. Anyway, I'm pretty sure it was freshman year of high school. French class, I chose that because I was like, that's rad. I want to learn French. And I went and saw Les Mis as a class trip at the Fisher Theater in Detroit. And this also reinforces, for me, reflecting on this and my childhood of just how much I wanted to be a creative person and how much it was in me. And was totally just blown away when I saw Les Miserables. I didn't even fathom that something like that fucking existed. The story, the music, and I'm not a musical guy, I like Wizard of Oz and I like Mary Poppins and maybe one or two others that I have nostalgia for because I was a kid, same with Les Mis. But totally just blown away by the production. It was this huge fucking rotating stage with this massive setup and the lights and the effects that they were able to do while it was live. Again, the story and the music, and I just fucking fell in love with it. And I fell in love with the story. Enough so where I've watched the movie enough times and I decided I want to fucking check the book out. And I did it on audio tape over probably 6 months worth of commutes because the book is 5 fucking volumes. And I bet 60 hours worth of listening time on audiobooks. But just really kind of trying to study that time period of 19th century France and the way that they looked at poor people and women and criminals. And it is coming back in a big fucking way. And when I see somebody like J.D. Vance and think about the shame that I had and the way that I could have went in my life, this is, again, how I can relate to J.D. Vance because I feel his shame at growing up poor. And I think of somebody like Inspector Javert in Les Mis. And if you don't know that much about Les Mis, Javert is the, again, inspector who chases Jean Valjean throughout his entire fucking life, who was imprisoned for 19 years for stealing a loaf of bread. And you find out during Les Mis that Javert grew up poor, and he grew up with maybe criminal parents. I don't really remember that much, but poor, and grew up hating the criminals and saying, you're fucking worthless. And that's kind of the vibe I grew up with, man, where I grew up with so much shame for being poor and being picked on that I grew up with this sort of, I'm going to be better than that. I'm going to be better than those people. And I grew up with that. And thank fuck my mindset changed, which I talked about a lot in the last podcast, man. My mind fucking changed. Just really from experiencing the world. The Army did that for me, man. Strangely enough. Had me meet with more people. Other than just the ones that I'm sitting with in this fucking community that just are saying the same things over and over and over again. And Vance is somebody who just went the other way, man. Again, I can't relate to being religious because it is wrong and factually wrong. Let's just throw that out there. I'm not going to get into a religious debate on this podcast, but I can't relate to the religious thing, but I can relate to the angry person thing and looking for somebody to blame. And if you grow up in your redneck fucking echo chamber, I can guess who you're going to blame. People that are different from you. People that you are scared of. People that you don't understand. Look, I don't understand wanting to become a woman because that's not me. But I'm willing to accept the fact that other people are different. And at the very least, it just makes me wonder, I wonder what that's like. that gives me such a curiosity when I think about trans people, because I can't relate to it, but it's something that you really got to believe in. And you really got to feel, I feel like, to choose to do that. And I don't even want to say choose, because I know that most people would say it's not a choice. And again, that's not for me to say what is or isn't a choice, but I'm willing to concede other people have a way of life that I might not understand. I understand being angry and wanting to find somebody to blame. But the people that MAGA are blaming are not the fucking problem. Because, again, the tag team, the new Soviets, I go back to J.D. Vance going, say thank you. You need to say thank you. That is not a negotiation. That is looking for complete and total submission. You're never interested in the get-go to have a negotiation. You were going to lay down your fucking bullshit terms. We're going to take your fucking minerals. We're going to take your rare earth minerals or whatever else concessions you wanted, and then say, thank us. When we're supposed to be their fucking ally, their main ally. We just spit in the face of our ideals. And it's so insulting as an American. It makes me want to cry. But it makes me want to rage more. And here's the thing. I am very angry, and I'm looking for somebody to blame too. And I also blame the Democrats, who I feel are so largely responsible for this. And who also hate dissenting opinions. I'm going to use Jon Stewart, for example. There's people that'll talk shit about Jon Stewart. Friends that were like, why is Jon Stewart making fun of Joe Biden? Rightfully fucking so. Because satirists point out the absurd and loyalists get pissed off when you make fun of their people. You know, I watch somebody like Bernie Sanders, and I have been paying attention to a lot of Bernie Sanders lately, who at however old he is still kicking and more coherent and more full of genuine piss and vinegar than any of the people are in charge, and is still most effective at getting the point across. And you're just like, man, if these fucking Democrats would not have fucked him over 10 years ago now, 8 years ago, I'm not even sure how long. It feels like a million fucking years. You know, we would not be in this position. And Democrats, again, the same Democrats that don't want to criticize Biden, and all they want to do is just say, look what he's doing, and just want you to fall back on board with the same fucking status quo. And that's not how it works. Like, can we just have an emergency election? I don't even know if that's possible. How do you have an emergency election or recall? At some point, Trump's got to be eligible for a fucking recall, you know? And at that point, Bernie Sanders says, look, you give me 3 years, I'll still be alive, and I'll still be coherent and an actual fucking leader. Because, man, oh man, it is dire at this point. I don't feel like... I don't feel like I'm speaking in hyperbole. I don't feel like I'm overblowing. I don't feel like I'm exaggerating, man. We're seeing it before our very eyes. We're seeing the new Soviet Union, and we're being mocked on the world stage. I have friends overseas now at this point that I talk to halfway regularly and ask them, man, what's your thoughts on this? And they're like, man, it's pretty awful. You're just destroying the alliance. You're destroying the friendly sort of vibe that we did have, at least to an extent, in some parts of the world. We still, over all the fucked up shit we've done, we've still been able to maintain some sort of like dignity, you know, and class. And that's all gone because it is a pro wrestling fucking match. And it's easily the worst time to be alive. But hey, it's fucking interesting, and it gives me all kinds of things to talk about. So even though some of the people I've talked to and a lot of the news I've read, I mean, that the branches of that idiocracy tree is reaching out to the international community, man. Xenophobia in Ireland. There's a very anti-immigration movement in Ireland and other parts of the country. And I get it that things are fucked and people are scared. But if you embrace people and you embrace cultures and try to make it easy and try to vet the ones that can't get in, path to education and empowerment, that actually promotes a great economy and less crime and actual democracy. It's amazing. Briefly earlier, but I am worried about suppression, and I am worried about our voices being suppressed. I'm trying to. I don't want to say it's a conspiracy that Google could be suppressing information, YouTube, which I'm on, could be suppressing information, but it makes me fucking wonder, you know? So many of these billionaires have their hands in so many of these pots we can't turn. I was trying to think of like, who the fuck can how can I get off Google? What can I use to do my work? What can I, because I don't trust corporations at all. Rupert Murdoch owns Fox News and all the other Foxes. Let's see. I don't know who owns CNN. I don't think it's Turner anymore. I think he sold it. Let's see. Pretty much. I was trying to think of like how I could get a different phone. Who owns Android? Oh, that's fucking Jeff Bezos too. What kind of iPhone? I'm not really down with having an iPhone anymore either. I'm kind of disillusioned with Apple. I thought about using Twitch for these video podcasts, or at least I don't even necessarily need to have a video podcast because I don't use cameras, but I want to have it in as many platforms as I can where people can see and check out the podcast. But it just seems like it's slowly crumbling down. At some point, our internet, I feel like, is going to get restricted. I don't know to what extent. I mean, I actually would say that that's probably, I don't know how right that is. I guess it's going to depend on what internet is being suppressed, what avenues and what kind of information they're suppressing. Because, I mean, internet is a large contributor, YouTube, of a lot of fucking misinformation. But there could definitely be suppression based on what you say and how you say it and how you lay it out. Who knows? AI is in charge of shit now. If AI says we don't want your dissenting opinion, then you're gone. You get taken off the algorithm. You know, there's a way to suppress it. You got the right algorithm, you got views. You got the algorithm that we don't want you to hear, then sorry, nobody's seeing that shit. Which is why liking and commenting and sharing all of this works. And please take that as your cue to please follow the podcast, rate the podcast, give it a good review. There's almost zero MAGA fans that are still MAGA fans that are going to like or give me a great review. But hey, somebody might. And we're going to be back with another podcast at some time soon. And please use any of the socials or any of the means to get messages or comments to me, and I will try to get to them. You want to talk about what we're talking about? I am not going to engage, and I made this decision. I'm not going to engage in the comment section on social media, the YouTube comment on social media. I usually make an exception if somebody gets really fucking stupid. I will, but I am not going to go back and forth. It is not good for dialogue, and it is not good for mental health to just keep going back to your phone and commenting. I put out what I put out and say what I say, but I'm not going to engage in the comment section. But if you got something you want to say, by all means, throw it in the comment section. Send me a message. I'm okay with messages. I do like to have dialogue, man, so shoot me an IM, shoot me however, just don't shoot me, okay? You know, I'm not taking up actual arms in this fight, but I'm going to fucking speak words because that's what I do. And hopefully what you're doing is having a great day, and hopefully I contributed to your day in some way, shape, or form. If you did get some sort of inspiration to speak out or can relate to this podcast in any way, shape, or form, please consider becoming a patron and supporting the podcast because I'm trying to keep this thing going and trying to make it self-reliant and all fundraising for the Smitty Learns Irish podcast coming up in just over a year. And I need all the support I can get, so please consider liking and subscribing, becoming a patron, all those things, and following along. Thank you so much. Have a productive day. I'm getting the fuck out of here.